Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
We are not intimidated here. Kim Jong-un neutered all of his staff just in case Jennifer Aniston ever showed an interest in him. Great to have you with us as we kick off yet another excursion into broadcast excellence. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882. Glad I waited on the Google story because there have been developments here that will add to my expose, the entire point that I want to make, that what's happening at Google is an example of what's happening on college campi everywhere. And this demand for diversity and so-called tolerance is actually leading to the destruction of free speech. And the guy that got fired at Google is making it very plain how things operated out there, and he's essentially saying the same thing. He's been interviewed by a couple people now. We have that to play off of. And do you remember when I, L. Rushball, earlier this week said, ladies at Google, don't get offended here. Don't waste your time becoming social justice warriors. Focus on the money. Google is loaded. You being discriminated against. They're making it plain. And now's the time to go for the money. In fact, grab audio soundbite number 5. This is exactly how I phrased it 3 days ago. Google is reeling. This is the kind of thing, this is the kind of charge that just sends leftists up the tree, that they're unfair, that they discriminate on the basis of gender. Ladies, tell Google to prove it to you that the guy who wrote the memo is wrong. What you say to Google is, show me the money. Go for the money. Tell them you want money. Tell them you want raises. Tell Google to prove it. Don't join the protest march and start throwing underwears and bras. Just demand money. They're reeling right now. Hit them. And lo and behold, on the Fox Business Network, Varney and Company today, Stuart Varney talking with Judge Andrew Napolitano, a human Eddie Munster, about a possible lawsuit against Google. Stuart Varney said more than 60 women are considering a lawsuit against Google. Silicon Valley will be taken on in class action lawsuit claiming gender discrimination. Who was it? Who was it that first suggested they do this? It was I. And here is Eddie Munster with the reply.
And it seems to have been triggered by that bizarre psychobabble-filled email that the engineer sent to 10 people, 2 of whom sent it to 40,000 people, and of course it ginned up all this dispute. We all know what sexism is, and the law doesn't define it, and the law doesn't condemn it. The law is a lot more precise. If you pay male and female different salaries for substantially the same work, you may be in violation of a California state law. As simple as that. What may happen here is there'll be a huge settlement. You're in California. You're in the most pro-plaintiffs state in the union. You're in the state in the union that the legal machinery is virtually controlled by the plaintiffs' trial bar.
That would be the Democrat Party. So, you see, many people had the same instincts, as did I. Don't waste time on the protest march. Don't do all the traditional things the feminazis would have you do. Just go for the money. Google will be reeling. Now, just to give you a taste here, the Google employee that wrote the manifesto ended up getting fired is named James Damore. And he spoke with the psychology professor at University of Toronto, Jordan Peterson is his name. And the professor here has a YouTube channel. And so Jordan Damore agreed to be interviewed by Jordan Peterson. And during the interview, Damore, the engineer fired, talked about the reason he wrote the manifesto.
I'm not just attacking diversity. I'm just attacking the fact that we can't honestly discuss any of these issues and that is actually hurting the problem.
And you see, they can't discuss, they can't be open about what they think. They have to follow the Google groupthink or they're going to be canned. They're not allowed to dissent. And yet these are people claiming to be the greatest defenders of First Amendment free speech. These are people claiming to be the bulwark and the saviors. And yet, if you don't say what they want to hear or what they agree with, you will be shut down, you'll be shamed, and you will be fired. This is how it begins, folks, and it's already begun on several college campuses and at many institutions of the left. It's as I said yesterday, freedom doesn't end on the protest march. I mean, you don't have a bunch of Castro supporters and others marching in the street saying, down with freedom. That's not, in fact, I say just the opposite. The way you end up losing freedom of speech is not by the protest march, but actually enforcing no freedom of speech and only tolerating certain speech under the guise of diversity or what have you. That's how it happens. And it is in the process of happening. And you can look at surveys of millennials on college campus. You'll find a shocking percentage of these young people who think that it's perfectly fine that speech be policed so that feelings are not hurt and so that people aren't offended. And they're perfectly fine with it. And that's how it begins. And, of course, all of this is happening under an umbrella that people think is ultimately good and positive and compassionate. We are preventing people from being hurt. We are preventing people from being offended. These speech codes and this discrimination against certain speech is a good thing. That's how it happens. Always under the guise of goodness do people lose liberty and freedom. That's how it happens. And then after a certain passage of time, that's when the powerful forces of government begin to enforce the speech codes with the use of force. But the early stages, it's very seductive and occurs under the cloak of politeness and fairness and decency, all of that. One other thing that Damore said on his podcast, this is a different interview, actually, a podcast with, I'm not sure the host, it doesn't matter. This is the guy fired by Google discussing some of his experience there.
I heard things that I definitely disagreed with in some of our programs. I had some discussions with people there, but there was a lot of just shaming and, no, you can't say that. That's sexist. A lot of this came from me seeing some of the problems in our culture at Google, where a lot of people that weren't in this groupthink just felt totally isolated and alienated.
Now, normally, and this case is true too, we're talking about the dividing line of liberalism versus conservatism. This guy happens to tend toward conservatism, and that's what is not permitted. Not just his words, his thoughts, if they're discovered, are not permitted. So people get shamed. They're called names, and that's how certain speech is silenced under the guise of improving everything, under the guise of not hurting people, under the guise of not offending people. And there's more on this that I want to get into as the program unfolds, but I wanted to set the table, give you a little idea where it was going. Now to North Korea. CNN has been in full hysteric mode over this. Give you an example. We're up to audio soundbite number 9. They have a correspondent named Sarah Seidner, and she did a report about the state of Hawaii's preparations against the threat of a nuclear attack from North Korea.
They want people to know what this sound is and what to do when this sound goes off in the event that there is actually a nuclear attack. I have it here for you. I'm going to play it for you off of the phone. Here's what it sounds like, Brooke.
Lord!
So that will go on, and it sort of, sounds like a wave.
Right. So that's, if you live in Hawaii and you hear that, that means the Norks have launched. That means you're under nuclear attack. They want everybody in Hawaii who will have about 8 to 12 minutes. Once it's been learned that Kim Jong-un is launched with Hawaii as a target, what are you going to do in 8 to 12 minutes? Not much you can do. Curse Trump and pray. I mean, it's Hawaii. What do you think they're going to do? Nothing you can do. 8 to 12 minutes, there's nowhere there's nowhere to go. If it's an island, you can't get off the island. Airports would be full. There would be no way. So, if I were Hawaii, I wouldn't even run the siren. I wouldn't let anybody know. Let them enjoy the last 8 to 12 minutes. Don't play that. I mean, it can be over in a flash anyway. Why make the last 8 to 12 minutes of people's lives sheer horror. You imagine the people would die from the stress and EMS couldn't get to them in time because the nukes will land? Remember, Susan Rice says, don't worry about any of this. No reason. We should learn to tolerate nuclear weapons in North Korea, just like we did the Soviet Union. Did the Soviet Union ever attack? Did they ever launch nuclear weapons tests under the guise of trying to hit us? They didn't, did they? But nevertheless, we should have no fear of Kim Jong-un. Here is the forehead, Paul Begala. Last night, Anderson Cooper's show, Anderson Cooper said General Mattis and Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, both coming out with variations of a more moderate statement. You know, Trump said fire and fury, and Tillerson came out, it doesn't mean that. He's just speaking in the language that Kim Jong-un understands. Here is the forehead's interpretation.
That's a terrific strategy for them now that the president has kind of messed up, to say, well, he didn't really mean that literally. But when a president speaks, especially in an international crisis, those words matter. That is no time to wing it. Frankly, his generals cannot allow him to go out unscripted.
Whoa, what? Wait a minute, what? The generals can't allow him to go out unscripted? The generals can't allow... Are the generals running the show? The generals can't allow Trump... Do the generals have the authority to stop Trump from saying whatever he wants? You know what I heard? Tell me if you think this is true. There's a story that the new chief of staff, General John Kelly, is trying to get approval rights over Trump's tweets. Have you heard this? The chief of staff wants to see Trump's tweets before they're tweeted out, and Trump is supposedly outraged. He is supposedly ticked. Nobody's going to take over the Twitter feed. No matter what else they want, nobody's going to touch that. I don't know if this is. There's so much out there, folks. There's no way of knowing what's true or not. But CNN's scared to death. They're playing the nuke is coming siren in Hawaii, getting people prepped for it. And now Begala wants the generals to somehow shut Trump up. And Trump is worried that Kelly might try to oversee the tweets. This is not good, folks. Not back in a minute. Okay, a little trivia question, a little pop quiz question, because the news is out there that Susan Rice of the Obama administration is saying that we just need to learn to tolerate the North Koreans having nuclear weapons, just like we've learned to live with the Soviets and the Russians and whoever else has them. We're not on a constant state of war footing with every nation has them. Why are we with North Korea? Well, that's a subject matter best answered on its own, but I do have a trivia question. Russians, the Soviet Union. Does anybody in this audience know how the Soviets got the nuclear bomb? Anybody? Snerdley, do you know? How did the Soviet Union get the nuclear bomb? Do you have any idea? They didn't steal anything from us. But they did get the know-how, the technology from us, but they didn't steal anything. It was Ethel and Julius Rosenberg who gave it to them, the spies. Now, I don't expect the millennials or even the Gen Xers to know this, but the Rosenberg, my husband and wife, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, literally, they were spies and gave the Russians the material, the tech on how to build nuclear weapons. Do you know what we did to the Rosenbergs? We executed them. They were spies. We executed Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. To this day, American leftists are outraged over this, but we did it. Now, how did the North Koreans get nuclear weapons? The Bill Clinton administration is how they got nuclear weapons. They snookered us. They promised diplomacy and negotiation. All they would do is ramp up their nuclear power plants. Same thing Iran did with Obama. They end up nuking up behind our backs while we supposedly weren't noticing. I don't think that Clinton will face the same fate as the Rosenbergs, but that's what we used to do to spies who gave away American secrets. Welcome back. Great to have you here, El Rushbo, behind the golden EIB microphone. On Tuesday afternoon, I interviewed the author and movie maker Dinesh D'Souza. He has a new book coming out called The Big Lie, exposing the Nazi roots of the American left. Provocative, obviously. Exposing the Nazi roots of the American left. So I chatted with him for the upcoming issue of the Limbaugh letter, and what he said, he gave 3 examples of how his book is true, how the allegation here that the Nazis were able to take cues from the American left. And I wanted to share them with you as a prelude to getting into all the rest of the content on today's program. There are 3 bites here. They run just about a minute each. And we've edited this for time. You'll have to read the entire interview when it comes out, the next issue of the Limbaugh letter. But the first claim that D'Souza makes, and by the way, to back this up, we need to point out that militant Islam has also deep ties to Hitler and Nazism. Hitler had an appreciation and understanding for Islam, and there are numerous bits of evidence that recount meetings between major mufti and mullahs and Hitler during World War II. These are things that it's not said in polite society. It's not alleged. And what D'Souza is doing, and then he's in the process of making a movie about this as well, that he hopes will be ready. Well, he said it's going to be ready next summer, into next September, as a prelude to the election. His first contention, again, that there are basically 3 examples of the Nazis, the German Nazis, adopting leftist ideas from the American Democratic Party. I'll tell you why he decided to do this. He's like everybody else in the right wing, fed up with the allegation that racism and all this has its home in the Republican Party. It's the exact opposite. Racism, segregation, all of this. These were all Democrats back in the 1960s who were trying to violate civil rights and keep blacks out of universities. All those governors and Bull Connor, the police chief, turning the fire hoses on African-American protesters and Martin Luther King. These are all Democrats. And D'Souza is, like many people on the right, frustrated with this history revisionism. So he decided to write the book and do a movie about how it's even worse than that. And his first example here is how Hitler stole from the Jacksonian Democrats of the 19th century.
Hitler remembered that in the 19th century, the Jacksonian Democrats, despite the existence of all these treaties with the American Indians, essentially decided to violate the treaties, throw the Indians off their land, drive them further west, so displace them, resettle that land, and if any of the Indians remained, either kill them or attempt to enslave them. And so Hitler goes, this is a fantastic idea. I don't need to go to India like the British. I'll just conquer in Europe. I'll throw the Poles off their land, the Slavs, the Eastern Europeans, the Russians. We'll resettle that land with German families, and if any of the natives stay back, we'll enslave them. So this notion, the historians call it Lebensraum, which means living space, but it's basically German expansion in Europe. Hitler got the idea to do that from the Jacksonian Democrats of the 19th century.
As we talked to him, I said, wait, is this just your interpretation? Are you looking at events that happened in America in the 19th century and then comparing events that happened in Europe in the 1940s? Are you drawing a connection? No. The Nazis acknowledged this, he said. The historical record is clear. The Nazis acknowledged where they, quote unquote, learned this stuff. And his point here was that when he saw how the Jacksonian Democrats dealt with Indians Native Americans, throwing them on the reservation, throwing them off, basically getting them out of mainstream circulation. Say, hey, this is a great idea. Now, this is going to offend, I can't tell you how many people. It's going to light up, I can't tell you how many people, if the book isn't ignored and if his movie isn't. But I guarantee you these are just things you don't say. You just don't say them. And, of course, D'Souza is saying these things after having been imprisoned by the Obama administration for this bogus campaign finance charge. The second example of the Nazis adopting leftist Democrat ideas was that Hitler stole the whole idea of segregation from Southern Democrats. See what you think of this.
The Nuremberg laws were the laws that turned Jews into second-class citizens. The senior officials of the Nazi Party get together to draft these laws. There was a transcript made of their meeting because they felt it was a momentous occasion. They were founding the world's first racist state. And then one of the Nazis in the Justice Department, who happened to have studied in America, basically told the Nazis, not so fast, you can't start the world's first racist state because the Democrats in the American South have already done it. He goes, all the things we're talking about, outlawing intermarriage, segregation, discrimination, they already have these laws. They exist. So all we have to do, he said, is take the Democratic laws, cross out the word black and write in the word Jew, and we're home free. So the Nazis then began a detailed examination of the Democratic Party laws.
So here's a second example, is that Hitler and the Nazis studied the way Democrats segregated, discriminated against Native Americans, and then African Americans. And the third example, he cites eugenicists and Margaret Sanger.
The Nazis in the 1930s based both their forced sterilization laws as well as their euthanasia laws on the models that had been created by Margaret Sanger. As Margaret Sanger said, more children from the fit and less from the unfit. And that's how she viewed birth control, and not as a matter of giving every woman a choice, but as a matter of convincing the successful and the fit to have more kids, and the unsuccessful, the sick, the imbeciles, and what she considered to be the disposable people, essentially to prevent them from breeding altogether. The other idea that a California eugenicist named Paul Popenoe had proposed, he said, we have all these useless people who are already born. And so it's not enough to have sterilization. We have to have euthanasia. We have to kill these people off. And the first people that they killed were not the Jews. They were the sick, the disabled, the group that was called imbeciles. And then later, the Nazi euthanasia program was expanded into Hitler's final solution.
So there you have it. That's a crux of the book, The Big Lie, from Dinesh D'Souza, The Big Lie, exposing the Nazi roots of the American left. Of course, everything he says here is accurate. Whether people want to acknowledge and agree with the connections made, that's going to be another thing. But it's not going to sit well with people on the American left, who, of course, are portraying themselves as the exact opposite of all of this. Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood are perhaps, they're two great examples of historical revisionism, and that is that the Democrat Party, the original racists, the original segregationists, somehow have rewritten history and have ended up seeing themselves portrayed as saviors and rescuers, and the Republican Party, which did not let the Democrats get away with segregation. The LBJ Civil Rights Act 64 would not have passed were it not for Republican votes. The major history revision. So is Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood. D'Souza, and for those of you who are millennials and maybe hearing this for the first time, I want you to not doubt me. Everything you've heard D'Souza say here is accurate. And particularly about Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood was not about choice, and it was not about allowing women to have control over their bodies. Margaret Sanger was the original eugenicist in this. She and many other Americans, she was in Australia, many Americans joined her in this effort of a master race. Margaret Sanger believed in getting rid of the sick, preventing them from breeding, as it's said here. History has revised the original intent and objectives of Margaret Sanger as well, so as to prevent the Democrat Party from being harmed by the actual truth of any of these assertions. It's a brief timeout. We'll come back and get started on the phones, maybe. Don't go away, folks. Having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Rush Limbaugh executing assigned host duties flawlessly, zero mistakes. And looky here, we actually have a caller from Honolulu. His name Fred. Great to have you, sir. I imagine you're responding to the CNN soundbite we played where the air raid or the nuclear weapon is headed our way siren.
That's true, Rush. They still play that siren once a month here to test. So it's nothing new for us.
Where do they play it?
They play it it's sirens that are based all over on telephone poles over the whole island system.
Oh, it's outside. This is not something broadcast on TV. They actually play the sirens on speakers.
Oh, it's broadcast on TV and on the radio, too. So it's everywhere.
And what do they say? This is just a test. Do not panic. No, it's just a test, just to test the system.
It's true.
Okay, we're starting to lose this connection there. But, well, grab soundbite number 9. Let's listen to what this woman said. Sarah Seidner at CNN. Now that we have a resident there, say they do this all the time, do it once a month. Here is her report.
They want people to know what this sound is and what to do when this sound goes off in the event that there is actually a nuclear attack. I have it here for you. I'm going to play it for you off of the phone. Here's what it sounds like, Brooke. So that will go on, and it sort of, sounds like a wave.
Right. Okay. It says Hawaii's preparations against the threat of a nuclear attack from North Korea. They want people to know what the sound is. Our caller there says, hey, we already know. They play it once a month. Now, I've been to Hawaii many, many, many times. I've never heard the siren. First of the month. Well, I have to go back and I'd look at my calendar, see if I've been there on the first of a month. Well, I know I've been there on a couple of New Year's days, but I haven't been outside the whole time. And I would hear it. I may not know what it is. I hear environmental sounds are 10 times louder than voices. I would not miss it. I would hear it. Now, if I'm inside, I don't know. But I'm very seldom inside in Hawaii because you can't smoke cigars inside. So I'm outside most of the time. I'm not saying anything here. I'm just saying I haven't heard it. And yes, I would hear it if it's there. I mean, it's going to be played at a very, very loud volume level. That would be the point. Richard in Konawa, Oklahoma. Welcome to the EIB network, sir. Hello.
Yes, Rush, and it's Konawa, Oklahoma.
Sorry about that. I had to guess at the pronunciation.
Well, it's actually pronounced both ways, and let me tell you my point first, and that is, should we go back to bomb shelters from the like we did through the 1950s? And by the way, I was.
Did your family have one when you were growing up?
No, we did not have one. However, friends of ours that had bomb shelters were threatening to keep their neighbors, including us, out if there was an attack because there would not be enough food and supplies for their family.
Right. I can tell you that I grew up during that era. And I remember people really getting into the idea of bomb shelters, whether they should have one or not. I knew some people that did. They were out in the backyard. They were above ground. They had very canned goods, yucco water and yucco turnips and stuff, whatever in there. And then we went through the drills in grade school where we had to practice ducking and sitting under our desks in case of a nuclear attack. I mean, that's how prevalent it was. That's how on everybody's mind it was. It was considered a legitimate threat. It occupied a lot of foreground attention for a while. And it was the direct result of Nikita Khrushchev coming to the United Nations, taking off his shoe and banging it on the podium and promising to bury American children and grandchildren. He was conducting a verbal threat at the United Nations. And the Soviet Union was considered a very scary and unpredictable enemy. And nuclear, from the moment that I remember, I'm old enough to remember anything, nuclear preparedness, nuclear concern, nuclear panic, it was a part of growing up. Now, I personally can't tell you why I didn't get into it from the standpoint of fear. I thought, folks, my mother accused me of being a smart aleck as I'm at earliest at age 8. And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? We're going to be safe ducking under these little desks in the classroom? Are you kidding? I never believed that. And I never believed the bomb shelters were going to make any significant difference either. What I do remember is how so many people thought all of this was a genuine and real possibility. And it was, as I say, it was a foreground thing. Much, not at all like today, where prior to this incident with North Korea, it's nowhere near. The last time I remember it being a front and center issue was in the 80s. And interestingly, it was when another Republican was president. That was Reagan. And I remember Phil Donahue with actress after actress from Hollywood going on his show, practically in tears and panic, asking, Phil, do you know what it's been like to grow up with the threat of nuclear holocaust every day? Do you know, Phil? I certainly do, and it's a horrible thing. Seems like these panic-filled moments occur only when there are Republican presidents, is my recollection on this. Quick timeout. Back in a minute. And welcome back. Just enough time here to wrap up our previous big broadcast hour. Much more straight ahead when we get back. Including the latest on what's going on in this whole North Korea situation and much else. So you hang in there, be tough, folks. Back before you know it. Welcome back. It's so great to have you here, folks. Rush Limbaugh, voice of reason, voice of calm. No histrionics and no hysterics here at the EIB network. Telephone number, if you want to join us, 800-282-2882. The email address, rushbo@eibnet.us. The latest North Korea story, if you really want to know the impetus, it's fascinating to me to follow these timelines. You know, we're all going along just fine. Kim Jong-un is who he is, and he's mouthing off, and he's launching his little podunks here and there. And then out of the blue, we get a news story. Just blows everything up, and it occupies everybody's attention. It focuses everybody's attention in the establishment, in the drive-bys. And, of course, every news story today, the New York Times, Washington Post, I don't care what the subject matter, every news story, prominent news story, front page news story, is designed somehow, related somehow, to Trump's unfitness, incompetence, dangerousness, effort to get rid of him. It's all part of that effort, whatever the story is. And so is this North Korea story. The North Korea story is not about the safety of the United States, per se. And it's not about Kim Jong-un as a legitimate threat. The North Korea story is being covered in a way to illustrate that Donald Trump is actually who is endangering the world. That Donald Trump is endangering the United States. And why? Not because he's going to push the button to launch any nukes. No, it's because he doesn't know how to speak in a polite, presidential way that won't provoke somebody with nuclear weapons to launch. And in the liberal world, the media world, the Democrat world, if Kim Jong-un right now supposedly is targeting Guam. You know what I think we ought to do? We ought to announce removing Guam to just off the coast of California and then send a press release out to tell Kim Jong-un to change the coordinates. That we went out there and we got hold of Guam. We lassoed Guam and we've towed it near Catalina Island. I'm just kidding. See, they have no sense of humor. They hear that. I guarantee these leftists, if they hear that, they're fulminating right now. But the point is, if Kim Jong-un does launch a test missile or any kind of, if he launches, I guarantee you, in this perverted media culture in which we live, he will be the last person blamed for it. He'll blame Trump. They're setting it up now. They want to blame Trump for everything. Here, let me grab one soundbite to illustrate this again, and it is soundbite number 9. I'm sorry, soundbite number, I think it's 11, and soundbite 11. This is Douglas Brinkley, a so-called noted presidential historian. And he's so noted that he's at a different university every 2 years. He's been at Tulane in New Orleans. He's been someplace in Washington. Now he's at Rice University in Houston. And he was on Anderson Cooper last night. And he was talking about Trump's fire and fury comment regarding North Korea and Tillerson making more moderate statements. And he decided to compare General Mattis, who was the defense secretary, and General Kelly, who was the chief of staff, and how they're treating Trump. Now, get
Nixon
this.
did go mad by 73 and 74. By the end of his administration, Kissinger would go in and hear Nixon say, bomb people to the, bejesus, and Kissinger would say, yes, sir, walk out, and just disregard Richard Nixon. We may be having a case here where Mattis and Kelly are just sort of kind of not listening to Donald Trump. I mean, he's been deeply erratic this year, and that suddenly the public's going to have confidence that Donald Trump's actually very sly and is playing a madman game seems to me being reckless. The American public would be reckless.
I don't know if you caught the beginning of this bite, but he said Nixon did go mad by 73 or 74. So once again, the pattern holds here. Only Republican presidents are erratic, lunatics, insane, dangerous cowboys, amiable dunces like Ronald Reagan. Nixon went mad, and now Trump is the worst of all of the elements that they hate about Republicans. Now, I happen to know, because I have spoken to Dr. Kissinger about this, and I happen to know the actual details of this. And it's not that Nixon was mad. It was not that Nixon was insane. It was, on occasion, Nixon would have too much to drink, and he'd call Kissinger and say, bomb Damascus. Get the 7th Fleet over there and bomb Damascus. And everybody knew that just go through the motions and then don't bomb Damascus and so forth. Now, when these stories are originally told, people freak. Are you kidding me? The president? I only know Dr. Kissinger's side of this, believe it or not. I chose to, but you take this. When Kissinger told me the story, it was more of a humorist. It was not, and the world was in a terrible, terrible period of time. The president of the United States was starting to bomb. There was nothing like that at all. It was lighthearted stuff, and the kind of insider chat that you get. I didn't get the impression that there was anybody thought Nixon was mad. This is interpretation. But the point is, they want to take things like that have not been attributed. Trump didn't even drink. They want to take these stories and now attribute them to Trump. And so here you have Douglas Brinkley saying that Mattis and Kelly are ignoring Trump like Kissinger ignored Nixon after he went mad. Nixon was not ignored when he meant it. And what we're getting here now is we've had Paul Begala in the previous bite make the point that the generals are not listening to Trump. And Miguel actually said that what we need to do is the generals cannot allow Trump to say things. So Begala wants the generals to stop Trump from saying these insane things, and Douglas Brinkley is saying that the generals are ignoring when Trump says these insane things like sound and fury and all of that. But what started all of this? I want to go back to that. It was a Washington Post story. The Washington Post story genuinely shocked the world. Now, stick with me on this. The Washington Post reported that the Defense Intelligence Agency had concluded that North Korea had successfully produced miniaturized nuclear warheads that could fit inside their missiles, about 60 of them. And that report changed everything. That turned North Korea from a bumbling little pot-bellied fool into oh, God, they got warheads now? And everybody started changing their focus on this 180 degrees. But here's the problem with this. That was not news. The Obama administration knew about North Korea's miniaturized nukes years ago. So this was Tuesday when the Washington Post did this big bombshell from the DIA that North Korea is now capable of building miniaturized nuclear weapons that could be used as warheads for missiles. But the Post story omitted that the DIA concluded this 4 years ago, folks. This is 4-year-old news. This is no different than on Monday, the New York Times, Monday night, with the shocking news alert saying that they've come across a secret government document suggesting that global warming is happening much faster and much sooner than anybody knew, much faster and sooner than the models predict. In fact, global warming is so bad that it's happening right now. And it turns out that very document had been public for months. And the New York Times reports it as a leaked document they secretly got that had never been reported. They were unleashing it on the world. The reaction that night with the alert and the next day was typical. It was fake news. And so is this business that the Washington Post did on Tuesday, that North Korea all of a sudden has nuclear warhead capability. They've had it since 2013. Who was president in 2013? That would be none other than Barack Hussein. Oh, was it reported in 2013? No. Did anybody raise hell about it? No. Did anybody get scared? No. Was anybody talking about what the hell has Obama done here? No. Was anybody asking what the hell did Bill Clinton do? How could Bill Clinton let this happen? No. There was no concern. There was no panic. There was no fear. There was nothing. They didn't even report it. The DIA made this calculation, reported it in 2013, and it wasn't even known. It was greeted with a ho-hum. You know why? Because throughout the Obama administration, there was simply no way that Barack Obama could do a damn single thing wrong. And whatever happened in the world was good because Barack Obama was president. Just like the Iranians getting a nuclear weapon. Why, it's only fair. Who are we to say they can't? And the North Koreans nuking up while Obama is president? Well, there's nothing to see here. Obama's got the situation in hand. Obama's erudite and sophisticated. He's cosmopolitan. Obama can deal with the North Korea. Now we have a fake story that's 4 years old, reported as a bombshell on Tuesday, and now look what everybody's doing. This is unconscionable. Now we got everybody reacting here as though there's a brand new imminent threat, and it's just days away that this lunatic is going to hit Hawaii or Guam or whatever, which is providing a new opportunity to portray Trump as incompetent, inept, and dangerous and what have you, just like every other prior Republican president is portrayed, including George W. Bush. The pattern is on, and it's just like when it comes to speech. Anybody on the left on TV can say anything they want. They can shout the N-word like Bill Maher did. They can say whatever. Let a conservative come along and say something not even close to that, and all hell breaks loose, and the censors break out, and the demands for firing people and shutting them down and getting them off the air start immediately. And meanwhile, leftists are allowed to do anything. So the North Koreans can nuke up when Obama's president? Yawn. Nothing to see here. Bill Clinton can enable the North Koreans to nuclear weaponize, lying through their teeth during negotiations, saying we're only going to build nuclear power plants. And then when they nuke up, we don't blame Madeleine Albright for being incompetent and stupid. And we don't blame Clinton for missing the boat. And we certainly don't blame Obama when they get 60 miniaturized warheads. No, we shelve the story and we wait for the next Republican president to get in office. We drop it on him to make it look like he doesn't know what he's doing. Meanwhile, the president, the grand poobah, the chief, whatever this guy is who runs Guam, is thrilled that Trump is talking the way he's talking because he wants the North Koreans to have no doubt what's going to happen to them if they launch on his island. He doesn't want any girly boy, pajama boy lingo. He wants somebody talking John Wayne tough at Kim Jong-un because he is supposedly in the crosshairs here. So once again, everything's 180 degrees out of phase, and the American people are being lied to front to back. New York Times in that bogus climate change alert and story, which was old news that didn't even draw a crowd when it was first made public. And now this lying sack of excrement crap from the Washington Post claiming 60 miniaturized nuclear warheads just this week we discovered Kim Jong-un hid. Nope. 2013 Defense Intelligence Agency assessment. And again, not a single story back then of any panic or fear or concern. No media reports. Does Obama know? How could have Obama let this happen? Oh, my gosh. No, if there were any stories, it was, don't worry, Obama's got it handled. Obama knows how to deal. Smartest man in the world. This is putrid, sick, offensive stuff. And you know what? I'm tired. I turn on TV. You can't miss it during the daytime. I'm still not watching at night. I just watched some panel on, I don't even remember which network, complaining about the partisan divide in Washington and how it is just getting worse and worse and worse. And, of course, the usual suspects are who? Us. People who do not kowtow to the establishment way of thinking. People who do not fall in lockstep with this kind of garbage the New York Times and Washington Post are putting out. And this is considered a problem with partisanship. And so here's free speech again, partisanship. The two go together. Partisanship gets worse as conservatives fail to comply with the approved way of thinking and the approved way of speaking. And this is making everything much worse. And so what the left is actually seeking here is the elimination of liberty and the elimination of freedom by virtue of using intimidation and worse to get people to shut up. We better be thankful that there are voices out there that can expose the fraud that has become mainstream news. The New York Times, the Washington Post, and their related networks, CNN, CBS, ABC, NBC, even PBS, and on and on and on. In other words, there is nothing new in North Korea, folks. The 60 warheads, nothing new. Kim Jong-un bragging about having them, nothing new. Kim Jong-un threatening to use them, nothing new. What is new is there's a president responding to it in a forceful, definitive way. That's the only thing new about this. We don't have a pajama boy who wears mom jeans, who can barely throw a baseball to first pitch at the Nationals game as president. We have somebody on there who's no nonsense and who's not going to take this. And that is now being portrayed as the threat. Donald Trump is the threat. Do you know the Washington Post actually has a story today? Panic realization, as though they just figured this out. Honest to God, I saw the headline last night. It's something, it's not this, I'm paraphrasing, it's, oh my God, Oh, my God, Trump actually has the nuclear codes. That's the headline. Oh, no, Trump has the nuclear codes. Well, what is the reader supposed to think of that? We're supposed to imagine some insane lunatic out of control that nobody can rein in. He's got the nuclear codes. Oh, my God, he could launch today. Oh, no. And so it's Trump that poses the threat to the world, not this lunatic in North Korea, and not the Iranians, by the way, and not the Russians, and not whoever other enemies of ours exist. No, it's Trump. It's irresponsible, it is dangerous, and it's sick. And we'll be back. Don't go away. Look at this. Well, I was just going through that riff on the fake news from the New York Times earlier this week on a supposedly shocking report that was only recently released, that global warming is already happening. We find out that report's been public. You could access it on the web 6 months ago. Nothing was suppressed. Nothing was secret. Politico with a breaking news alert to their subscribers. 2016 broke global temperature records again. It was the warmest year on the Earth's surface in nearly 150 years of measuring, scientists said today in an international report that also found the highest sea level since 1993, the third year in a row, blah, blah. The annual assessment, coordinated by the Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the first comprehensive climate report released under Donald Trump, who has they are still reporting this fake thing the New York Times faked. The rest of the Times has corrected their mistake. Not prominently, but the Times has corrected. They have it's a humiliating thing that they had to do. Well, I don't know how humiliated leftists can actually allow themselves to get. But they had to run a correction on this. But you know what? The rest of the media is still treating the original New York Times story as active and gospel, which is what Politico is doing here. The thing is, the report's not true either. I'm just telling you, it is bogus. There hasn't been any appreciable warming in the last 15 years, and sea level rise immeasurable. It's just, but this is what happens. Even as I was going through the riff, Politico sends out this next climate change alert to their subscribers. We'll be right back. Get to the phones. One more thing before we get back to the phones. Actually, two more. You would not believe the second one, except that you will. But in addition, folks, in addition to the Obama administration knowing back in 2013, 4 years ago, that the North Koreans had miniaturized 60 warheads, nuclear warheads for their missiles. That's 4-year-old information. I cannot emphasize this enough. 4-year-old information the Washington Post tried to pass off on Tuesday as blockbuster, brand new news. It's been known since 2013. When Obama was president. But here is the pièce de résistance from our old buddy Bill Gertz at the Washington Free Beacon. North Korea transfers missile goods to Iran during nuclear talks. Some of the nuclear warheads that the North Koreans had developed, they transferred to the Iranians when Obama was conducting negotiations ostensibly aimed at preventing Iran from becoming a nuclear nation. While we are talking to them in 2015, 2 years ago, the Norks are transferring nuclear technology to the Iranians. And by the way, it went back and forth. They had basically a nuclear relationship. The Iranians would share data with the Norks and vice versa. Look, folks, we're living in a genuinely dangerous time when these news organizations that set the agenda every day are so willing to misrepresent, to outright lie, to create false fear, unnecessary panic. I mean, listen to the calls that we've had today. Rush, is it time to go back and get the bomb shelters? And why? Why? Not because of anything North Koreans or the Iranians are. No, it's dangerous because Donald Trump is in the White House. This is outrageous. It is anti-patriotic. And somehow this stuff has to stop. These people they've got to fail in this. Except they're not. It's just, and then we get these stories that generals that work for Trump also think he's the problem. A chief of staff who works at Trump also thinks he's the problem. This is what's reported every day. Now get this next one. I promise this will be the last item of mine for a while before we go back to the phones. I just got this. I was gonna wait, and I decided during the break I can't wait on this because it fits too well with the table as I have set it. New York Magazine, the author of the piece here is a woman named Amy LaRocca. Now, based on her last name, what would you guess her hair color is? Dark hair? Now, you probably, Rush, what does that matter? Rush, come on, don't do this to us. We defend you all the time, and now you're going to talk about a woman's look because of her name? Yeah, but I'll tell you why. You want to hear the headline of this story? The politics of blondness. How Fox News and Donald Trump have given blonde hair a new chapter. It is now the color of the right for whom whiteness has become a hallmark. And here is a pull quote, and there's a picture of every prominent blonde that has ever worked at Fox, now or in the past. There's thumbnail type pictures. There's 3, 5. Okay, so there's 20 on one page. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 20 on another page. And it must be 55. 55 thumbnails of all blondes, yeah. And some of these women are not blondes. They're redheaded, but they have made them blondes in these thumbnails. But the pull quote is, Fox News and Donald Trump have given blonde hair a new chapter. Now blonde is the color of the right for whom whiteness has become a hallmark. So Fox News and Trump secretly, they're working on the power of suggestion that everybody who watches Fox is drawn to it because there are blonde-headed women doing the news. And that is an automatic attraction for white supremacist Christians. That's how Fox is doing it. That's how it doesn't matter what the content is. If content makes it worse, Fox is attracting its audience by signaling in almost an invisible way that Fox is the home for white Christians with so many blondes. That's what the story says, folks, and it prints out. It's a long story, prints out to 6 pages. And I'm not going to read nearly all of it, but listen to this. And then, of course, after detailing what's wrong with Fox content-wise, and then, of course, there are the politics of hair color. The politics of hair color. How many blondes do you see working at MSNBC or CNN? How come when there are blondes there, this kind of concern never is raised? Attributes associated with whiteness, light skin, narrow noses. I'm reading bigotry here. Online open bigotry. Attributes associated with whiteness, light skin, narrow noses, have dominated American beauty ideals as long as there has been such a thing, which means that blondness has always been charged. The 50s gave us Doris Day, who once said that her only ambition ever had been to be a housewife in a good marriage. To be blonde was to be a good American woman, pure of intention and heart, which implied also, of course, that to be a good American woman, pure of intention and heart, meant being blonde. Betty was blonde, Veronica was blonde, ditto Sandy and Rizzo. Hitchcock liked to cast blondes because he said they made the best victims. The color was virgin snow that shows up the bloody footprints. Blonde hair shows blood better. Blonde hair is associated with virginal values, which, of course, makes it automatically Christian and right-wing. And then here comes the paragraph. Fox News and Donald Trump have given blonde hair a new chapter. Now blonde is the color of the right, for whom whiteness has become a hallmark. And then there's this. Since only about 2% of the world has naturally blonde hair, being blonde is a choice. And the means used to get there can be very easy to read, as can the choice of which sort of blonde precisely one wants to be. For every Carolyn Bessette Kennedy with expensive buttery chunks from the Brad John salon, there is somewhere out there a Kendra Wilkinson or a Holly Madison with margarine yellow ringlets. The class implications are almost embarrassingly easy to spot. Are any of you following this? And so not only is blonde the color of the right, and that Trump and Fox News have politicized it, now we're subdividing the kind of blonde. And we are deducing from that other things about the women. They're fake right-wingers. They're pretend right-wingers. They want to make themselves look like they want to be married and housewife-oriented. And they know how to trick white Christian men into falling for that. And it's all in the blonde hair. And Fox is promulgating all of these subliminal messages by hiring blonde after blonde after blonde infobabe. This is how the left sees people. This is how they see the world. Everything is surface to them. Everything is color. They haven't the slightest idea or desire of getting to know who people really are. What's the story I had last? Oh, it was the DNA, the embryo DNA shopping they were able to do, and it was all based on, well, your kid might be fat, your kid might be redheaded, your kid might have green eyes. You want that or not? No, I don't. I want a blonde. That's what that story was about. It was all about how liberals see people. Everything on the surface. That's all that matters. I got to take a break. I promise, we'll get to your phone calls. If you're on hold, you will be gotten to. Hang in there, be tough. Okay, I promised that we're going to get back to the phones, and here we go. As always, have my brain tied behind my back, just to be fair. We start with Ben in Jackson, New Jersey. Great to have you, sir. How are you?
Hey, Rush. Good afternoon. How are you?
Very well. Thank you.
That's wonderful. I got to start off saying, first things first, Rush, you don't understand the impact that you have on us middle-class, common-sense Americans, I like to call it. Let me explain. I am 27 years old. I never voted before. I voted this past year for Donald Trump. I can never understand. I'm big into the news, and it kills me to no end to see that the latest poll is Trump's base is eroding. Trump's base is leaving him. To me, it just makes me go even stronger towards the president. Because, again, I didn't vote for Donald Trump based on who Donald Trump is. Do I agree with everything he says? No. But one thing, and I know lots of people that voted for him, one thing he stands for is he means business and he speaks directly to the people, and he has nothing in it. You know, the whole thing is this notion that some Republicans are going to make healthcare fail because this way Donald Trump, you know, he'll fail and no one will vote for him again. That's the reason why we voted for him, because we, as common sense Americans, are sick and tired of the same old Republicans and Democrats who stand up there and talk about for 8 years how they're going to repeal, replace, and do this and that. And guess what? They can't even do it. That's the same reason why Donald Trump won.
Yes, they can do it. That's the rub. Everybody, you know it, I know it. They can do it. They don't want to do it. It's not that they can't. They can.
But guess what? We're going to vote for him again. Because you know why? He's the only candidate. He's the only president. And I don't know how, like I said, I'm only 27, that I voted for. And I don't agree with a lot of things he said, Rush. I don't agree. I don't agree with first things first, Rush. If he would want to fix things up, why can't he just have an open discussion with American people? That's when he's at his best. Just talk to the people directly. That's how he won, Rush.
Hey, Ben, give me an example of something that you disagree with him about, or something he says that you don't like.
I honestly, when he is a little bit arrogant on the tweet. I think I know what he's trying to do.
Can I guess something? Would I be correct in guessing that what you don't like about it is that you think he's making himself not look good, and you want him to look good, and you think he's hurting himself? It's not that you disagree with him doing it, or that you're down on him. You want him to look good, and you think he's hurting himself in that regard. Is that right?
Ross, a drop deeper than that. I believe also he distracts, from the ultimate, to keep that positive that we need. Rush, like I said, I never voted for anyone before until I voted for him. And that's the funny thing is, I'm sorry for keeping jumping around. The funny thing is that how could the same polls that said that Hillary's up by 11, did they forget what happened in the past 8 months? Did they forget that they were so wrong and they're still doing the same poll? Who are they polling? They're not polling me. They probably polled me that I was voting for Hillary. And guess what? I'm voting for Trump again, even with some of my disagreements. So,
no, let me tell you, Ben, you're right about the left. They're not trying to adapt to deal with Trump. They're using brute force to change the landscape while remaining in opposition to a majority of the American people. They don't want to have to adapt to win. They want to win with the sheer force of power, and they want to nullify the election. They're not going to look out there and say, the American people want X and Y and we don't. We better try to make the American people think that we're with them. But that's not who they are. They're never, ever. Media, establishment, Republican, Democrat, they're never going to do that. I appreciate the call. I understand you're not voting ever and then voting for Trump. I know exactly what you're saying, and you're skipping around was not a problem. I can keep up. But I think there's something simple here, or basic, that so many people who oppose Trump are overlooking, and they consider it nothing more than a meaningless catchphrase or slogan. But it really does embody or encapsulate what all of this is about with the Trump voter base. And it's in that slogan, Make America Great Again. And this is something that the entire Washington establishment simply rejects, doesn't try to understand, and in fact mocks and makes fun of it. And that is that a significant portion of our people, and it's an increasing number, believe the United States and its existence as founded is threatened. And that people who have been in power, like Obama, specifically Obama, were harming the country in terms of its growth, in terms of job opportunities for average, ordinary Americans. There were people who felt that Obama felt the global governance and global concerns were far more important than domestic American concerns, which were ridiculed and apologized for. And it really isn't any more complicated than that. You have many in the country who think the nation is in crisis and faces real threats to its existence as founded versus people who think that's crazy. And because they think it's crazy, they reject it, and then they mock it and make fun of it, as in bitter Klinger comments or other similar things. And it remains the glue that keeps Trump and his supporters together. It's the bond, it's the super glue that they can't break, and yet they don't even understand it. It's not more complicated than that. You can make it so if you want, but it isn't. Yeah, look right here, McClatchy news. Lawmakers fear Trump's tough talk could trigger war. So irresponsible. Journalistic malpractice, irresponsible. One big broadcast hour remains. We get right to it right after this. Say, did you guys see this story of the 25-year-old female bodybuilder out of West Australia? You saw that? How's that possible? Given everything you've been told since being a young child, how is that possible? Greetings, my friends. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, the all-knowing, all-caring, all-sensing, all-feeling, all-concerned Maharishi, here at the one and only EIB network, 800-282-2882. A woman, 25 years old, bodybuilder, the epitome of being fit, the epitome of being in shape, not just in shape, in great shape, dies, age 25. You know from what? Protein shakes. I have told people my whole life that everything you're being told about exercise and all this stuff in terms of losing weight is not right. You can't do it without reducing the amount of calories that you eat. Pure and simple. Exercise alone doesn't even get close to losing weight. You can't do it, can't exercise enough. And yet people try because they believe what they've been told. And they've told, oh, yeah, protein shakes. Don't eat the carbs, man. Don't eat the carbs. Will kill you. Carbs are, oh, my God. Don't eat the fat. The fat will kill you. So people, woman OD'd on protein shakes. Devastated family of a West Australian fitness model have warned about the dangers of protein supplements after they contributed to the young mother's death. 25. 2 kids. Oh, hey, folks, did you hear this? This is some of the biggest news. Is it Norway? Norway is announcing this. Let me see this and make sure I get a little bit more about. I think it's Norway, maybe Iceland. They've announced they have ended Down syndrome. Have you heard this? You haven't heard it? They have ended Down syndrome. It's the greatest thing. They've done it with abortion. They're very proud of this. There's news stories all over the web today about how Norway's just singing their own. I think it's Norway. Let me find it. I've got the story in one of my stacks here. And I think, yes, here it is. Iceland, I'm sorry. It's Iceland is on pace to virtually eliminate Down syndrome through abortion. CBS News is reporting this as though it's a great, great medical breakthrough. CBS News has tweeted it out. Iceland on pace to virtually eliminate Down syndrome through abortion. Learn more tonight at 10 on Eyeball News. And they even have a picture of an infant, a Down syndrome baby, next to a river. It's the sickest thing I've ever seen. Well, what else? What else? Oh, some clown, some sports columnist at Yahoo. I don't remember his name. I just glanced at the story. You ready for this? Marshawn Lynch, who now plays with the Las Vegas Raiders, although they're not in Las Vegas yet. They're still in Oakland. But Marshawn Lynch sat on the bench during the national anthem during a preseason game over the weekend. And so the media, panting breathlessly, want to speak to him after the game. And he had nothing to it here, man. I'm just being me. Just doing what I always do. Been doing it for 11 years. 11 years. We've never seen you sitting on a bench and doing the anthem for 11 years. What are you talking about? Yep, that's me, man. Just do what I do. Don't read anything into it. Just doing what I do. The sports media are very proud of Marshawn Lynch. And they've gone back and they've tried to look through game tape to try to find if, in fact, he did sit down during the national anthem for 11 years. They can't find any evidence to support the claim, but it's Marshawn Lynch, and you don't call him a liar to his face. They went to the coach of the Cleveland Browns, Hugh Jackson. Said, hey, Hugh, what do you think about all these players here, the Kaepernicks of the world? Said, yeah, and Hugh Jackson's African-American. He said, I don't want to see it here, man. I talked to our team. I don't want to see it. We play the anthem. We stand for the anthem. That's what we've always done. That's what we continue to do. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope there's nobody on this team that's going to take a knee, stay seated on the bench. So a Yahoo Sports columnist, whose name, when I saw it, I didn't recognize it, which is why I don't remember it, has a solution, and it's right along the lines of the solution in Iceland to Down syndrome. This guy's brilliant idea, if you want to fix the problem, stop playing the anthem. He says they don't play the anthem at concerts. They don't play the anthem before Broadway plays. Why do they do it before sports events? Just eliminate it. And if you don't have the anthem, then nobody can get in trouble for sitting down because there won't be anything being played while people are seated. And there you have the intellectual clarity of the left. Eliminate the patriotic. Eliminate the symbolism that is meant to inspire people and connect them with the history and the greatness of their country. Eliminate, that's the problem? Of course. Let's just get rid of the anthem. Why didn't anybody else think of this? And then our players couldn't get in trouble. Hey, Mr. Yahoo Sports columnist, let me tell you how the real world works. If this ever happened, and don't discount it, because this guy's idea is going to be picked up throughout sports media, and it will be, I guarantee you, by the end of tomorrow, this will be a topic on Fox News, be a panel discussion, maybe many of them, and it'll be on CNN, and it'll be all over the place. Is the solution to this problem eliminating the anthem? Can we eliminate this disrespect or this controversy by simply taking what's controversial out of the equation? And therefore, we have set up for us that the controversy here is not the players who are ignoring it or disrespecting it. It's the anthem itself, which is the controversy, you see. Yes, my friends, it is America itself which is controversial. America has such a sordid past, it is not worth it to honor America. We shouldn't do this. It gives people the wrong idea. This is not a great country. It never has been great, and it shouldn't be great, ever. And so getting rid of the anthem will get rid of the controversy. Always the left's solution. And let's see if I'm right. How long is it going to take for this to become a mainstream discussion? And then they're going to start going to owners. And then they'll go to players. What do you think about just getting rid of the anthem? Let me tell all of you what's going to happen. If that ever did happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if it did, because as you know, corporations don't like controversy. And if the anthem is causing controversy, causing distractions, if all these players begin to take a knee, sit on the bench, that's a distraction we don't need here at the NFL. Let's just get rid of the anthem. That won't stop anything. The people who are gaining attention and fame by disrespecting or opposing the anthem will find something else to cause the cameras to focus on them. And since they already know what the basic ingredients are, go out there and diss the country, and the media will love you. Go out there and proclaim that you have serious problems with the United States, and the media will be immediately sympathetic. So they would just find some other way of quote-unquote protesting. Yesterday on the program, I happened to mention that a New York Times writer, Cheryl Gay Stolberg, must not have gotten the memo because she sent out a couple of tweets acknowledging that the hate in Charlottesville was equally distributed. That there was as much hate on the left and violence on the left as there was on the so-called right here. She admitted that the Antifa, by the way, who is this Antifa? They keep naming this. All this is Occupy Wall Street. All this is Black Lives Matter. There's nothing new here. It's not a brand new group of protesters who are minding their own business, decent, hard-working Americans who became outraged at Donald Trump. These are the same bought and paid for malcontents that are lurking at every World Trade Organization meeting, every G20 economic summit. These are the famed anarchists that show up and try to burn buildings and start fires and throw little firecracker bombs and so forth. Same group of people been out there for years and years and years. It's Occupy Wall Street, which was a manufactured group of people bought and paid for. It's the same bunch. And Cheryl Gay Stolberg has now been forced to backtrack. New York Times reporter Cheryl Gay Stolberg made the mistake of admitting that along with the violent white supremacists who terrorized Charlottesville over the weekend, many Antifa protesters were also enacting hate-filled violence, as they've done in several other cities in recent months. For noting that this is a quote from the tweet we shared with you yesterday. She said, quote, "The hard left seemed as hate-filled as the alt-right." She also cited, quote, club-wielding Antifa beating white nationalists being led out of the park. Those were in her tweets yesterday. She got hammered online. And even after she repented and issued a correction that depicted the violent left in more heroic terms, she actually did that. It wasn't just Trump that they made rework what he said. They went to Cheryl Gay Stolberg, the leftists, and they treated her as a traitor. How dare you report this that way? So she had to rewrite her tweets and her statements and make it appear that the Antifa people were heroic in their response to the brutality and the meanness and the viciousness of the Nazis and the white supremacists. She also pointed out in her original tweet, striking how many of the white nationalists were young people, almost entirely men. She said the hard left seemed as hate-filled as the alt-right. I saw club-wielding Antifa beating white nationalists being led out of the park. Among my unanswered questions, police response. Why did things get out of hand so quickly? Could violence have been prevented? For pointing all of this out, she was corrected online. One responder warned her, don't buy into the false equivalency like Trump and sympathizers. Only one group would commit genocide against the other if given the power. In response, Cheryl Gay Stolberg apologized and noted that she had made a correction about her hate-filled comment. She tweeted, yes, fair enough. See my TL for a correction. Cheryl Gay Stolberg. And here is the correction that she submitted. Rethinking this, should have said violent, not hate-filled. They were standing up to hate. She was casting the left's violence in heroic terms. But, of course, the first reaction, the instinctive reaction, is always the truth. But she was faced with pressure. So here is an acknowledged journalist who we are led to believe is only seeking the objective truth so as to inform people who weren't there what really happened, which she did in her first two tweets. And then the violent left warned her that she was treading on dangerous ground and even getting close to the quicksand if she didn't correct this, which she promptly did. She buckled to the pressure of the violent left and portrayed them in heroic terms and said that their violence couldn't even hold a candle to the violence of the Nazis and the sympathizers. Her tweet about the police, this was a major focus on this program yesterday. And, oh no, she got more than that. I mean, she was some of the other things she was received in her tweet. Why are you normalizing Nazis? Bad take, Miss Stolberg. A leftist woman is dead because she protested Nazis. How dare you think you can compare them? She was hammered. I guarantee you she was afraid. Damn guarantee you she was afraid over the reaction she got. So she marched into her Twitter account and she did a reversal. But remember, she is a journalist. And she responded to the pressure and probably joined the chorus of people who criticized Trump as a coward. Well, you don't really mean it. You're just saying this because we forced you to say it. You don't really mean it. You don't believe it. You can't make us believe it. You really mean it, which is how they reacted to Trump's statement yesterday. Charlottesville chief of police is categorically denying that the police were evacuated because it was too dangerous. We had the report from Doug McElway, Fox News, yesterday. Source says cops were ordered to make no arrests without explicit prior approval of the mayor. And I think if you dig deep into this, you'll find that the mayor of Charlottesville is very much involved in the decision to keep the police on the sidelines. Got to take a break, but I'll show you what I mean. I want to get to your phone calls as well, folks. We're well into the second hour. It's time for that, so we'll be back before you know it and get started with it. I think the mayor of Charlottesville took a page out of the book from the mayor from Baltimore. What was her name? Forget her name. Remember where she said, what was her phrase? Give them space. Give them room so that they can get it out of their system. Give them space. And look, the police were ordered to stand down in Charlottesville. Somebody wanted that to happen, folks. The police were told to stand down. The police were saying, no. We were retreating to go get our riot gear. Well, why didn't you show up in riot gear? But if you retreated to get the riot gear, why didn't you come back with the riot gear on if that's where you went? They were ordered to stand down. I'll tell you something else. I think all of this is organized, folks. I think Terry McAuliffe, in fact, was trying to use this whole episode to launch his presidential bid, and he botched it because he doesn't have that big ability to get noticed. I mean, this is a pretty big deal. This is what Democrats do. This is what Clinton, Oklahoma City bombing, launched the rebirth of his presidency, which is exactly the Democrats see a crisis and find out how they can benefit from it while making people think they're trying to fix it or solve it. And I think McAuliffe was doing the same thing. I think, remember Rahm Emanuel, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. I think not so much there are people that wanted this to happen, but knew it was going to, and so let's see if we can milk it. And in order to milk it, it had to happen. And in order for it to happen, the police have to stay out of it. As the NYPD said, wouldn't have happened here. We wouldn't have let these two groups get within eyesight of each other. And we certainly wouldn't have let some renegade car enter this whole scene. Somebody wanted it to happen. Or somebody knew it was going to happen and didn't want it to stop because they wanted to try to capitalize on it. Here is Calvin in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm glad you called. How you doing, Calvin?
I'm doing great.
Well, good. Thank you. What's up?
Well, it's an honor to talk to you. I'll get right to my point.
Appreciate that.
I have recently changed my mind about the removal of Confederate monuments. I mean, I understand how they could be offensive. However, when I hear someone like Al Sharpton talking about removing the Thomas Jefferson Memorial,
it's not. I think that's predictable. It's Charlie Rose not objecting to it that, to me, is the news.
Don't you think that puts us in the same bucket with the ISIS thugs that are destroying 1,000-year-old artifacts because they don't agree with what they might have done 1,000 years ago?
Which we, by the way, condemned when they did it. That's not what ISIS says.
We condemned that.
Can I go back to something else you said, Calvin? I think there's a very interesting and teachable moment here in something you said. You said you used to be sympathetic to the concept of tearing down and getting rid of these statues because you didn't like that it offended anybody. Why? Don't misunderstand the tone of my voice. And you're not going to have time to answer for the break, so I'm going to hold you through the break. So don't panic that you're running out of time here. I want you to think about the question during the break. I want to know, why is it just because somebody is offended we have to take down statues? Or just because somebody is offended we have to do anything? Why is it the offended, no matter how few of them there are, always must be acknowledged? Back now to Calvin in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I'm not trying to ignore everything else you said, but this has long been a pet peeve and a bugaboo of mine, because we're doing it. All some little minority, very tiny minority group individual has to do is stand. I'm offended. This offends me. We have to stop everything we're doing and get rid of whatever it offends. Why? Where did being offended become such an important thing that we cannot tolerate people who are offended?
Well, my experience has shown me that there's an old parable about the camel with his nose in the tent. And I agree with you now. I should never have compromised what I really thought was right to try to appease someone's feelings. You're absolutely right. I should not have done that. They were wrong to start with. But when you look at where they want to take it,
right,
it makes it glaringly clear, and they're no better than the ISIS thugs that are destroying beautiful artifacts because of something they disagree with. It's like the pharaohs chiseling the names of previous pharaohs off monuments. So I agree with you. You're right 100%.
Well, with ISIS, though, and this, I like your analogy, but I would take it even further. ISIS is not destroying monuments and museum artifacts because they disagree and are offended by it. They're wiping it out to erase it. They are trying to end all references to that which they disagree with. It's 1984, ISIS style. They're trying to eliminate from existence the things that they're destroying. They don't want anybody to ever know any of that happened. It's not that they're bothered by it per se. And you're also right about I applaud this. You discovered you can't appease them. There is no appeasing them. And I'll tell you what, Calvin, people on our side still haven't learned this. You know, our so-called media and elected officials in Washington, their whole existence is based on appeasing somebody, the media or Democrat leaders or somebody, and you can't. Just like there's no appeasing in World War II the Japanese. All there was to do was defeat them. There was no appeasing them. Ditto Hitler and the Nazis. There was no appeasing, and yet this seems to be an approach that we all take. Well, these people are just young people, and they're very, very upset here, and maybe we just acknowledge that we understand why they're mad and tear down a couple of Robert E. Lee statues, and we can show them that we understand. They see that. Oh, you're torn down two. Well, we want to get rid of the other 1,500 of them, wherever they are, however many. And you've just said that we can, so get out of our way. You want to appease us? This is what it's going to take. And if you really want to appease us, die. Because we'd really rather not have to deal with you, period. And don't think you can join us because we'll know that you don't really mean it. And yet we persist in trying to appease. It makes us feel better. It makes us feel better about ourselves. We're being nice and we're being understanding and we're reaching out and showing them we're not the monsters they claim that we are. They are the monsters. We're all minding our own business here. We're bothering nobody, doing what we do. Not a single soul. Everything is ass backwards in this equation. The troublemakers versus the peace lovers. It's all ass backwards, or back asswards if you prefer that. Other things out there happening, and I would be remiss if I didn't get to them. Kim Jong-un has backed down from his promise or threat to eliminate Guam, to erase Guam, to wipe Guam off. Another guy, he didn't want to appease anybody. He wanted to wipe Guam off the map. Actually, I don't think any of that was ever true either, but with a madman like this, you have to deal with the possibility. And so guess what's happening? Guess who's getting the credit for this one? Well, yeah, the Chi-Coms, but Mad Dog Mattis. The media is crediting Mad Dog Mattis because Mad Dog told Kim Jong-un, pal, if you do this, then there are going to be responses in kind. And Kim Jong-un backed down. But Kim Jong-un said, but that you Yankees, don't think this means anything because I'm just going to be thinking about it harder. I'm going to take the time. I'm going to be watching you Yankees. So we're supposed to be quaking in our boots here as that little odd haircut supposedly ponders what's going on. We are now told also this poor little guy himself is a victim. Do you know that it has been recently discovered that he's been taking steroids? And therefore, we might not have actually seen the real Kim Jong-un in the past 6 months. He might have been experiencing what is called roid rage. I'm not kidding. I'm not making it up. I don't make anything up. Everything I tell you I saw somewhere in the news. Some of it I print out, some of it I don't. I didn't print this out. I read it. It's in the voluminous stack of stuff that I read between last night and this morning. The reason that it matters to me is because there's one reason Kim Jong-un backed off, and it's Donald Trump, who will not be given credit for anything. It is Donald Trump who told this guy what for. It's Donald Trump who practically begged this guy to hit Guam. And everybody in Washington, oh my God, he's begging him. Oh my God, you remember this? He's insulting Kim Jong-un. Oh no. He just told Kim Jong-un to go to hell. Oh no. He just called Kim Jong-un crazy. Oh no. In the left's view of things, that's going to make Kim Jong-un really offended and really mad, and he's going to launch. They do not, and all, Rex Tillerson said, back off. Trump is just talking the language they understand. And Kim Jong-un has backed off, and the last person you're going to see get any credit for it is Trump. Let's go to the audio sound bites. Grab number 11 and number 12. This is John Berman. Oh, I forgot to tell you something. And Cookie, don't bother giving me the bite. I'm getting backed up here as it is. In that segment where I played the soundbite from Eric Dyson or Eric Michael, where he went on about how cerebral Obama is and what a pig idiot Trump is, there was somebody else. There was a Republican or a conservative guest, and it's a Trump supporter. And I'm a mental block on the guy's name. He's from Utah. And he's good. He's been a Trump proponent, defender, supporter since the primaries. And he acknowledged during this debate that the Nazis are bad people, the Klan bad people. And Kate Baldwin thanked the guy for being courageous enough to admit on CNN that he finds the Nazis and the KKK repugnant. It was no different than when, Al Gore, in a vice presidential debate in 1996, Bob Dole was our nominee, and he had chosen Jack Kemp to be his Veep. And Al Gore was the sitting Veep for Bill Clinton, and they had a debate. And Al Gore stands there and says, Jack, you're not like the rest of your party. You're not a racist, and you're not a bigot. And Kemp said, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Well, this guy, I didn't even hear what he said. I heard Kate Baldwin, who was the info babe, who was hosting the segment, did pretty much the same number on this guy that Al Gore did on Jack Kemp. Singled him out for the guts and the courage to actually speak out against the Nazis and the KKK. And then she said, see, it wasn't so hard, was it? See, we can all do it. If we all would do this, see how much better off we would be. She was preaching. She was condescending. And it was the end of the segment. The poor guy didn't have a chance to react because she had just responded here to this Eric Dyson guy who had been talking about Obama's brilliance. And I said, gee whiz. Well, anyway, her co-anchor sometimes is a guy named John Berman. He used to work with Alice. No, Fredo works with Allison Cameron. And this guy, maybe it is Kate, but it doesn't matter. He's on at 11 o'clock in the morning, I think. They float the times. This was this morning, CNN's newsroom, and this is this guy, John Berman, talking about Kim Jong-un announcing that he's decided for now not to attack Guam.
He blinked. He seemed to blink right here. Kim Jong, unbelievable. North Korea backs down.
Okay, now I need to ask you, does he sound disappointed? I want you to listen to this again. Kim Jong, unbelievable. Oh, no, the guy backed down. I don't know. That's why I'm asking you people in the audience, because I could be misjudging this. But my interpretation is that they're a little disappointed. The disappointment is not anything other than Trump wins. They just can't abide it. And Trump is not going to be given credit for Kim Jong-un backing down. The Chinese are going to get credit. But why are the Chinese doing what they're doing? Donald Trump. What the Chinese have stopped, the Chinese have told the Norks, we're not going to import any of your worthless crap. No more your coal, no more your seafood. Would you eat North Korean seafood? No way. Of course, if you're the Chi-Coms and you're starving, you probably would. But the Chi-Coms told the Norks, none of your coal and none of your fish, none of your exports, except the stuff that's currently in transit, will take it. Nothing. No exports. We're not going to take it. And so the Norks, plus Nikki Haley gets credit for this because she put together this pressure group at the UN to force sanctions on the Norks that the Chi-Coms went along with. This is all Trump. This would have never happened. Obama could have never pulled this off. It was Obama and Clinton who basically stood aside while North Korea nuked up with American technology. Donald Trump made this happen, but he's not going to get the credit for it. And he did it by talking tough and not trying to appease and not trying to, hold his little guy's hand and walk him through the dangerous woods. He warned him, no uncertain terms. You're not going to like it if you launch on Guam, Kim. Here is Matt Lauer. Matt Lauer on the Today Show today with Andrea Mitchell. Now, you tell me, are they disappointed or not?
Breaking news overnight in the North Korea crisis. After reviewing his military's plans to attack the U.S. territory of Guam, Kim Jong-un now says he'll wait and watch before deciding to launch. Andrea Mitchell has more on this. Andrea, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Matt. I've been talking to officials overnight, and they are discounting those reports that Kim Jong-un has blinked, if you will.
Oh, okay. So Trump didn't do anything. And Mad Dog Mattis didn't do anything. And the Chi-Com's actions don't mean he hasn't backed down. My sources in the state, he hasn't backed down. Trump didn't do anything. Nothing to see here, Matt. Let's move on and see how Megyn Kelly's show is going to do. Back to the phones we go. El Rushbo here, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. And if you were in my shoes, you would be too. Look, if I didn't have this every day, this microphone, I'd be as hogtied frustrated as you are. And I am. I'm just acknowledging I have an outlet for it here. But folks, all of this is all organized, and it isn't anything new. The same people that rallied after Hurricane Katrina are this bunch. Same people were in Ferguson, the same people that rallied in Oakland, the same people that have been around for at least since the Bush administration, Occupy Wall Street. It's the same bunch of people. Just moving from protest to protest and march to march. It's the same bunch. Now, they do have their true believers. Don't misunderstand. I mean, there's plenty of poisoned-minded college kids out there who have been brainwashed and literally poisoned with hate for their country. And they're there. But I'm talking about the organization for this. It's being done on purpose. It's not spontaneous. It's being done on purpose. It is reported as though it's all spontaneous. It's reported as though everything was peaceful and everything was tranquil. until some people decided to march in Charlottesville to oppose the tearing down of the Robert E. Lee statue. And that is what ignited the flame. And that's the exact opposite of how this is all happening. It's the left that is thoroughly organized and bought and paid for and is essentially on call, if you will. They are on standby. Few people would probably know that or acknowledge it, even if told, because the way it's reported makes it all look spontaneous. It makes it look like, well, just when Indiana, Mike Pence signed into law the Religious Freedom Protection Act. Remember how immediately there was a massive statewide protest against Pence and the Illinois legislatures, a bunch of racist homophobes, Christian zealots. The media shows up, the national media, and they started knocking on business doors trying to find a business that would admit it would not cater a gay wedding. And they finally, in some suburb of a suburb, found a 22-year-old daughter of a pizza owner. I win, I don't think I win. And they just descended on this poor pizzeria and this young woman, and they painted her out to be the modern incarnation of evil. That was all planned and action waiting in the shadows for the go signal. But it's reported as though it is a national outrage. The people of America are beside themselves at the idea we need to preserve American history. The American people cannot stand the idea that there's a Robert E. Lee statue anywhere, and they side with the leftist protesters who want to take them down. That's the way it gets reported. You're being lied to. We're all being lied to. Every minute of every day in the form of what they tell us is news, which is really just the narrative that is the advancement of the leftist agenda every day. By the way, folks, Hillary Clinton has just given $800,000 from her campaign funds to the Trump resistance movement, which is what's funding all of these rent-a-thugs. It's all a left-wing movement, and it's all organized. And we have to break here to top. Back in just a second.